Good afternoon. My name is Olatuji Abdulrazaq. Today with me is Dr. Emeka Ihebie. Dr. Emeka Ihebie, please introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Emeka Ihebie. Pardon my friend for murdering my surname. Then a little clarification, I am a doctorate student at University of Lagos. So in law they say equity sees as done that which ought to be done. So my friend is seen as done that which ought to be done. All right. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very excited on what we're about to discuss.
Okay, thank you for coming around. I really appreciate it, or at least on a short notice. Today we'll be discussing, the legal implication of letter of substitution. I'm sure, probably you've had one or two clients, who had such issues with Federal Inland Revenue Service. So I'll be asking some few questions. What exactly is letter of substitution?
Well, letter of substitution, as they call it, although in the tax laws they call it appointment as agent. It's simply one of the means of tax enforcement, where the tax authority tries to put someone who has money that is belonging to a taxpayer who is yet to pay tax, and put that person who is holding the money that is belonging to the taxpayer in the shoes of the taxpayer. The purpose is just to get the money that is due to the taxpayer from the person that is holding it, maybe a bank, usually a bank. So in other words, if a taxpayer has not paid a tax that is due, the tax authority can decide, and that taxpayer has money in bank, the tax authority can decide to appoint the bank as the agent of the taxpayer who is owing tax. That has to be very important. Okay. This point has to be made. Who is owing tax? So that money that belongs to that taxpayer that is in the custody of the bank is used to offset that tax that the taxpayer is owing. So it is akin to what we call garnishing proceeding.
Okay.
In law, that is a form of another enforcement where someone who has, to put it in a layman's language, who has won a case against another person, goes to the bank of the person against whom he has won and say, please, this person, I won a case in court against him, and the court has awarded me 100 million naira, and I know that this judgment debtor, that the person that has lost has 100 million naira in his account in your bank, so can you just give me the 100 million naira? Simple. And when he obtains proper order from the court, the bank is bound to pay that money. And if the bank allows the judgment debtor to remove the money after the court has given order, or knowing fully well that money is in the custody and this person is supposed to pay that, the court will make that bank to pay. So that is what substitution simply means. It's just to get the money from a recalcitrant taxpayer. Okay, yeah.
Before I go to the next question, you mentioned something about getting a court order.
Yes.
Well, looking at it from a practical point of view, do you think FIRS have, done that to get a court order before putting the letter of substitution?
Well, from what the little experience I've had from clients, there has not been court order. What happens is that the FIRS usually write to banks and say this person is owing so and so amount of money as tax, he has failed to pay tax, so appropriate this amount standing in his account to offset that alleged, I call it alleged because until you prove that someone is subject to proofs. So that is what happens most of the time. No court order is usually obtained, which in itself is a bit surprising. No court order is usually obtained before this. Okay,
thank you very much. Does FIRA has that power to even to write a letter of substitution? Can you expatiate more on the section that talk about that?
Yes, the truth is this: like I said in the beginning, substitution or appointment as agent is one of the means of tax enforcement. Others include action for the court or action for the tax debt or distrain, which is the most popular. So is one of the means. And the law, I think section 49 of Companies Income Tax Act and section 30, if I'm not mistaken, of Federal Inland Revenue Establishment Act, gives the FIRS the power to appoint agents, persons who may have in their custody money belonging to a taxpayer from whom tax is due. This is very important, from whom tax is due or payable. So they have that power to do it. They have the power, but the challenge is that power is attached with some conditions. There are certain conditions that have to be fulfilled before you can make someone who has the money of a taxpayer in his custody to pay that tax. Like I keep emphasizing, the tax must be payable. In other words, that tax must be due. If it is not due, then you cannot make the person to pay, the agent to pay. So, to answer your question, yes, the FIRS has that power.
So, but do you think those conditions are met in practice?
In practice, those conditions seems not to be met. Like I said, the law says that the tax should be payable. Now, in tax world, in the law of tax, in the world of tax law, that is a very important, phrase. Tax must be payable means that, first of all, there must have been an assessment at least to start with. Now, an assessment simply means that is a kind of, to put it simply, is a kind of document you issue to a taxpayer to show him that, look, we have looked at your affairs, you are owing tax. So that is just how to put it. This is how much you are owing, Now, that is the assessment. There must have been assessment issued to the taxpayer. Now, when you issue an assessment to a taxpayer, the taxpayer, if he disagrees with that assessment, saying, no, I'm not owing this kind of amount, has the right to object. And in objecting, he also must give reasons, including information, documents, whatever, to show that that tax is not supposed to pay it, either that it is too much or that it is not right. Whatever the reason he may have, whatever the grounds, he should be able to set them out in his letter of objection. Now, FIRS receiving that letter of objection, of course, the taxpayer has to do this within 30 days. If he cannot do it within 30 days, the law allows him to apply for extension.
Exactly.
Good. So, upon receiving that letter of objection, the FIRS ought to look at it, look at the information that the taxpayer has provided and the documents. Now, the FIRS also is obliged to grant the taxpayer fair hearing. They ought to look at it one by one and give their reasons, their own decisions with respect to those grounds that of objection. Say, okay, if you say this is our own, basis. This is our own side of the story. Just to say, okay, Mr. Man, this one, we agree with you. Okay, this amount, you have shown that you spend this amount of money, so it is deductible. This one is not deductible. We are not agreeing. You have not provided enough document to show that this is a bad debt. All those things, they ought to do that and respond to the taxpayer. Now, the law did not provide the period within which FIRS should respond, but there's a decision in which the tax appeal tribunal said 1 month is enough. We can't be waiting for the tax authority in perpetuity. So after all these things, if the taxpayer still have further grounds or further information to give in support of his position, he can do that. But at least at the end of the day, there must be an end to all these things.
Exactly.
So if at the end of the day parties agree, all well and good, the assessment can be discharged or the amount assessed can be reduced, And in some unfortunate cases, it could be increased at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, so they will come to that. If they cannot arrive at a consensus, then the tax authority has the power to issue what we call notice of refusal to amend. We call it NORA, saying, no, my friend, we cannot agree. So they issue that NORA. If there is a change to the assessed amount, they issue a fresh assessment.
Exactly.
And that is it. So after that, the taxpayer has the right to go to court within 30 days. Okay? So within 30 days to go to tax appeal tribunal, within 30 days, and they can take it from there. So you can see from all this, before tax can become payable, is either after being issued the assessment, the taxpayer did not respond within 30 days, did not object within 30 days, then we can say that the assessment becomes final and conclusive. Now, when it becomes final and conclusive, which means that there's nothing that can be done, it has crystallized. Then when it crystallizes, it becomes a tax debt. That is when it becomes payable. All right, that is when it becomes payable. And once it becomes payable, then the tax authority now can now have the right to appoint an agent who has the money of the taxpayer in his custody to pay. So you can see that there are procedures to this. So it means that the tax authority cannot just wake up one morning, write to the bank of a taxpayer and say this man is owing so and so amount, no assessment, nothing, no proof, because assessment is like a proof. Yes, before you can take money from someone, because you see, tax is a deviation from the fundamental right to property. It's a very important right. So, like my boss used to say, nobody pays tax smiling. You cannot you cannot come to my house to take money from my pocket, money that honestly you didn't work for. You just want to take it because you are the government. We agree. But if you want to take it, you must take it in accordance with the law.
Exactly.
So all those things, that is very important. So if you just decide to wake up one morning and say to my banker, Emeka is owing 100 million, so the 100 million in his account, appropriated to pay the tax without any proof of it, it is wrong.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that detailed explanation. Yeah. Okay, now having said that, the next question is this. Okay, we understand that there are procedures before you can issue letter of substitution, and in practice we notice that, or we can confirm that we're not sure that all those procedures are being followed. At least we have a number of clients that who have been given letter of substitution, and we know what it is. Even for some clients who are complying and who have been paying their taxes. But having said that, let's also go to the issue of the banks. Even the banks, what do they need to look out for before they can actually grant or set aside those money based on the letter of substitution from FRA? Don't you think there are some, confidentiality or some form of agreement between them and their customer? Are you sure they're not, abusing any rights in that regard?
Well, you see, now there are two relationships here. There is a relationship between the bank and the taxpayer. The taxpayer is a customer to the bank.
Yes.
And there are rules guiding this relationship. They call it banker-customer relationship. And one of the cardinal principles of that rule is confidentiality.
Exactly.
On the other hand, also, the bank is subject to certain rules. There is a relationship between the bank and also the FIRS. Now, under the law, yes, the law recognizes the banker-customer, the confidentiality in the relationship between the bank and the customer. But at the same time, also, the bank, that confidentiality can be shattered when it comes to the issue of taxation, because the law allows it.
Okay.
If you look at the tax laws, there are provisions that says that banks should transmit to the FIRS periodically the number of customers, new customers and everything, and sent to them, and of course FIRS has your BVN. So there is nothing confidential. They know the amount you have in your bank, and that can actually be fearful for those who evade tax. So they know the amount they have. However, in this case, the banks are not just dummies. I believe that the banks have in their employ lawyers and advisors who should be able to advise them when they receive those kind of letters on what they need to ask. For example, I believe that the banks have the right to ask for proof of these tax liabilities. I think they do. Because if you decide to freeze my account, or remove my money without having proof, I will come after you. Because
after the bank,
because it's my money.
Yeah,
I gave you the money. Because the people don't know that the relationship, the kind of relationship between a bank and the customer is a debtor-creditor relationship.
Yes,
the bank is actually the debtor.
Of course.
Yes, because you are keeping my money. It's my money. That's why when you see checks, you see they don't say please pay, they say pay. It's a command. So if I issue a check, pay, to somebody and the bank fails to pay because, according to them, they got a letter from FIRS saying that I'm owing tax, the next thing I will ask them is, where is the proof of the tax debt? Okay. So the banks, in answer to your question, the banks have that duty to do background check, ask questions.
Because the truth about it is that from experience, sometimes a lot of customers, a lot of taxpayers are not even aware that a lien is already on their account until when they want to make a particular transaction. And I think with that regard, once the banks get the letters, they should inform the customers immediately, not until when a transaction is about to take place.
Yeah, that's another thing again, because most of the time when you get these letters, you discover that it was issued a long time ago.
Exactly.
Some maybe months ago, and the customer is not aware. It's as if there is an ambush for the customer, assuming maybe the customer doesn't have money in the bank, and the bank receive this kind of letters. They keep quiet until that one has made a deposit.
Because of course the Nigerian mentality, once you know that, once they inform you that you already have a lien on account,
you move. You move.
So just like you said, the right one is that it's just like an ambush, waiting for you to deposit. Then they now send you a letter that look at what we got.
Mm-hmm. So like that. So, and by the time they give you that letter, your money is already in there. So
it's easier to pay in, but it's not easy to collect.
It's just easy to collect. So
okay.
that is another thing again. Honestly, I believe that the banks are not really doing well in this. They seems to be complicit in a kind of I call it this kind of a form of dangerous game. If not, why not? Why don't you inform your customer at once? Once you receive that letter, you inform your customer. And I see serious legal battle brewing if this continue this way. It will take just one person, to do that, and you'll be surprised at what we. Because Nigerians, at the end of the day, and every Nigerian love, we show once he sees someone has successfully sued a bank, others will follow suit. So banks have to be very careful, very, very careful. Make this thing and have the boldness to say no. Ask for the like what happens with EFCC. I'm sure they don't just, when EFCC asks them to freeze accounts, they don't just freeze.
Yeah.
They may ask for court orders or things like that. So the same thing, they should ask for all those things. And if they don't have tax experts, tax attorneys in their midst, they should employ one.
Exactly.
It's important. So that they don't get into this, because if they decide to
take them
do
to
this
court
and take them to court, they will pay dearly for it.
Okay.
There's a lot of things to pay.
Thank you so much for that explanation. Right now we would like to go on break, and we'll be back shortly. Please stay tuned.
Everything business, everything finance, all on one dedicated radio station, Insights Radio. You are listening to Nigeria's first finance radio station, Insights Radio.
Yeah, welcome back to this edition on Insight Radio. I still have my guest here, Dr. Emeka Ihebie. Sorry, I don't know if the pronunciation is correct.
Emeka, we do.
Okay, Dr. Emeka. We've been talking about letter of substitution that has been happening and is still happening. I think it's been happening since last year. And my guest here has been trying to, talk about the legal implication, what the rights you need to know, whether, the right and wrong of letter of substitution, the procedures, the steps to take, and all that. Lastly, Dr. Emeka, I want to ask, this is going to be the last, question for this edition. Can you please, talk more about power to distrain? Because these days, you see FRS or the State Internal Revenue Service locking up or sealing up companies and all that. Can you please just shed more light on this, if the tax authorities actually have the right to seal a company?
All right, good. Now, when I started, I spoke about the fact that the appointment of agent is just one means of tax enforcement. Now, through that, if you look at the tax law, there are various means of tax enforcement. We have, like I said, action. If the tax is due, it becomes a debt. So the tax authority can decide to institute an action either at the court or the tribunal, to recover that with interest. They can also distrain. They can also, if the recalcitrant taxpayer is a ministry, department, or parastatal, they can go through the Accountant General of the Federation to deduct the amount, the tax that is owing from the allocation due to that. So there are, yes,
due to the ministry.
Yeah, due to the ministry.
Or government agency.
They go to the source, So that's the thing. And this strain is one of them. And I must say it is the most radical of all, because it strikes at the taxpayer. This training simply means taking the property belonging to a taxpayer and selling it and using the money realized from the sale of the property to satisfy the tax that is owing. Simple. So FIRS, like, I keep wondering most of the time why especially the FIRS is not using this power to its fullest potential. Why I'm saying this is because, unlike a state tax authority, the FIRS does not need a court order to distrain. All they need is just a certificate and, of course, evidence.
Certificate of what?
They call it certificate of distrain.
Okay.
That is what they ought to do. But most of the time, you find out that they go and they seal a whole compound. And sometimes when they seal the compound or they seal the building in which the taxpayer is, or the office of the taxpayer, you find out that they may end up punishing both the innocent and the guilty, because there may have been more than one occupants in that building who are doing business. Now, when you seal the building, you seal everybody's business. Nobody wants to go there. Even though it is only just one tenant that is the recalcitrant taxpayer, everybody will look at that building, the occupants of that building as tax defaulters.
Exactly.
With the other unpalatable consequences attaching to it. So it's important that in doing this, they should also follow the law. You see, the truth, like I said, the truth about tax is that, it is about taking money or property from people, and taking it. So nobody likes to let go of his money like that, because tax is expropriatory in nature. So because of that, whatever the tax authority wants to do must be strictly in accordance with the law. That is why you hear the court will say that tax laws are strictly interpreted. It is what you see that you get.
So there's no assumption.
There's no assumption. They say there's no equity in tax. What they mean by there's no equity in tax is this: if after interpreting the law, a taxpayer ought to pay, he will pay the tax, no matter how inconvenient, no matter how pitiful it is. So if the taxpayer, if the poorest man in the world today, after interpreting the law, it is found that he is liable to pay tax, he will pay it.
Maybe the community will support him in paying it.
Because the community will go GoFundMe issue, but he must pay. You understand?
Yeah.
So, but, and on the other hand too, if the richest man in the world, after interpreting a tax law, is not liable to pay, no matter how desirable it is that he should pay, he is not going to pay. Even if the tax authority come and say, but he has enough money, he should be able to pay, the law will say no. After interpreting, it is shown that he is not liable to pay, so he cannot pay.